You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Good day and welcome to the Mushie Moment for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Welcome to the Mushie Moment with myself and my awesome podcast, Cindy, for here in September already.
Yeah, September 3rd. September already is right. The last 8 months have gone by like that.
Yes, it seems to be speeding up. It just, if we could just slow it down so I could have a few more months at the beach, it would be incredibly awesome.
I need a few more months to study.
Studying the beach is an awesome idea.
It's a great idea. I'm down for that.
So you're coming up on the end of your little bit of studying and cramming and doing and getting all ready. And
I leave
how
for
many
Mexico.
more podcasts before you're in Mexico?
Well, I've got this one. And then we've got another wonderful guest lined up for next Tuesday. And then I leave.
Wow. So then after you finish your Mexico journey there and then you come back, you will be a 5-MeO facilitating kind of person.
Yeah, on a larger, like a incredibly trained way. I mean, and I feel leaving this training, I'm not just leaving with 5-MeO knowledge. There's a lot of that. But we're just talking general knowledge on how to work with people with psychedelics. There's a lot of information there that's psychedelic specific, not necessarily 5-MeO specific inside that. But yeah, there was a lot of information, and I don't think 9 months was enough. I need more time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty exciting. That is like really exciting. You're going tell everybody how long you're going to Mexico for.
Well, I'm going to actually end up down there for 3 weeks and 1 day. I'm going down with a couple of days ahead of time, hanging out with my dad, meeting up with a couple of the other students from the course I'm taking. And then we are spending a few days afterwards together doing some integration, because when we go down for the practicum, it isn't just the final exam. We go down for the practicum. It's all about doing the medicine, and they truly believe you shouldn't serve the medicine in certain fashions unless you've done the medicine in certain fashions. So 7 of the 10 days of in-class studies is actually ceremony. We're actually doing the medicine for 7 of the 10 days, and that's a lot of psychedelic work.
That is.
So we're spending 3 days after. There's a lot of the cohort that we're spending 3 days afterwards, just to take 3 days off and do some integrating and have some integration circles and relax. And then on my way home, I am actually stopping in. We do, highly. And then I'm stopping in Toronto on my way back to write my final exam with Cacao facilitation, to finally get that over and done with. Because of course Judy has offered to do it virtually any number of times, but I'm not a virtual person when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm a, hey, how you doing? I want to be able to give you a hug and say hi. So we're gonna do that when I stop in Toronto on my way home.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a great little segue thing there when you were saying you're going to take a few days for integration. Because
Integration.
that's
Yes.
a great place to segue into our next guest that we have on. So I'm just going to give you a little rundown. His name is Dr. Gordon Reid. He has been helping people struggling with relationships, depression, anxiety, and basically the meaning of life issues for quite a while. I found him because he was offering to help with somebody that was struggling with some integration in the group that I was in. And I went, this gentleman, in the way he reached out, I went, this is a gentleman I would like to speak to, and I would like to learn his story. So we reached out and we brought him on, and we'd like to introduce to you Dr. Gordon Reid. Good day, sir.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Oh, thanks for coming on. Yeah. Well, I did give you a warning of the first question, so we'll just jump right into it. Dr. Reid, what started you down the road of helping people specifically with psychedelics?
Well, Cindy, maybe I could back up a long way into my own history because I think it's important understanding. When I was 17 years old, I had what I would call an awakening. Now, there's a difference between an awakening and being awakened. I'm not suggesting I'm an awakened being, but I had an awakening, meaning I had a quality of an experience that was so profound for me that I didn't know what to make of it. I couldn't make heads or tails of it, but it was fascinating to me. And it was like a light bulb went on in that moment of wanting to know something, wanting to understand something. That light bulb never turned off after that point. And that means that literally, and I do mean this in all honesty, every day, from the moment I wake up until I fall asleep, my mind is asking the question, what is this? And I have traveled through many caves, some of which were very, very dark and some of which were very, very light and amazing. And I've done an awful lot of exploring. So how did I get into doing the sort of the psychedelic integration work? Well, it began back there where I realized that something was going on that I hadn't seen before and that I didn't know about before. It began to make me wonder and puzzle about the nature of my own consciousness, the nature of my own reality. And I began to sort of talk to people about it. I should say more accurately, try to talk to people about it. Because what I discovered, much to my chagrin, was that actually most people weren't particularly interested in knowing about what struck me as the most fundamentally important and fascinating aspect of being, our own consciousness, or at least consciousness itself. I'm not quite sure that it's mine. That's a whole other topic of what consciousness is. But I realized maybe I would phrase it this way, I could interface with consciousness. I began to learn how to inquire. I began to learn how to ask questions about this, what is this? And I developed a familiarity with doing that. And it continued on where eventually I was able to have certain kinds of experiences when I was quite young, 18, 19, where I did some psychedelic experiences, some journeys, various types of other experiences, all of which opened me up to the fact that psychedelics, other things can do this also, but psychedelics create a quality of consciousness that is on its own terms. It's a quality of consciousness that, in my book, if you haven't kind of learned how to navigate and it's hard to know how to phrase this properly when I say lesser states of consciousness, because this state of consciousness, this current present state of consciousness, is as amazing and is as magnificent and miraculous as a psychedelic space. But psychedelic space is a different quality of experience. So, if I tried to give an example, it's like if you don't know how to listen to music properly, and if you don't know what musicians are playing, and you don't really appreciate what the music is that you're listening to. But when you begin to learn how to navigate psychedelic space, you realize that there are things that work and things that don't work, and things to do and things not to do. And so it became for me one of those avenues of exploration that I couldn't actually get through my own sort of natural method, meaning that even if I'm meditating, I don't enter into that quality of consciousness. So it's a form of knowing, I will call it. It's a something that you can learn to listen to attend to in such a way that if you are prepared for it and have the right sort of support and training, you can learn to navigate that space, and importantly, to try to sort of go back into the segue notion. If you know how to integrate it, then it becomes a very, very, can become a very worthwhile, meaningful, life-enhancing experience or set of experiences. And so the journey began back when I was 17. I've continued traveling in one way or another through consciousness, and remain absolutely fascinated now by this burgeoning industry, the psychedelic industry, and the types of experiences people have when they're on it, and that includes the kind of challenges they have afterwards. Because in our social system, we're not good at helping people unpack psychedelic experiences or odd or atypical experiences. In fact, we're horrible at it. So there's a kind of a quick answer to your question.
So of the medicines that you've done, the different experiences, can you name a few?
Okay, I've never injected anything into my system. So that means just about anything else you can imagine, I've done it. I have had ketamine injected into my system, but I've never done anything like, I've never done heroin. So I've tried, what haven't I tried? Well, I'm sure there's some things that I haven't tried, but my greatest familiarity was with psilocybin and MDMA and acid LSD journeys. Now, those were some of, I worked at a retreat in Jamaica, a high dose psilocybin retreat, where the drug, it's legal to do psilocybin. And I'm kind of putting, I guess, a cautionary note in here, maybe for myself, is that I'm a licensed professional. I don't like to flout, laws, and I don't want to come across in any way as though I'm doing that. But I think I've had, quite a range. Name a few. Well,
what about things like the ayahuasca? That's a real popular one.
So ayahuasca is a very interesting one. Actually, it's the one that I haven't done. Having said that, there's NMDMT, which is the root of ayahuasca, along with the MAO inhibitor, which extends the trip. But certainly NMDMT, I've had experience with 5-MeO-DMT, and then all of the psilocybin, the MDMA, the mescaline. No, I don't know. I had a chance to try opium in the jungles of Thailand. I don't mean to say that therefore I have traveled through all of the spaces and I know everything. I don't. I can just tell you, though, kind of what the differences are. I know the differences between different types of medicines.
Yes, and that's valuable experience right there. Yeah. As you're talking, I'm like, oh, well, one thing Cindy and I talk about is the different languages that the medicines speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
They tend to all speak healing from a place of love, but they do speak different languages. And the
Yeah.
more of them that you've encountered, the more you can help other people that have encountered them.
Yeah. And then to that point, Steve, the understanding of what might work for someone based on, well, whatever parameters you want. What is the situation that they're dealing with? What kind of previous experiences have they had? What is their openness to experiences? Because something like 5-MeO just blows you open so fast that if you're not, if you don't have some experience, it's like getting shot out of a cannon. And others are a lot more gentler. MDMA is a much more gentler drug to go on. As long as the conditions are right, as long as the people around you know what they're doing. So there are definitely different sort of signatures that these medicines have, and good to know what those signatures are like, including the time frames on them, how long they last, what kind of effects they have over the next evening, next couple of days, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, being able to handle somebody that's in a reactivation is a pretty important part of helping them integrate.
Yes, and to your point, Cindy, knowing that in advance, what the particular, you never know what someone is going to encounter. So, one of the big things that people say, and I think it's a very important thing, is like, what is your intention? One of the reasons why I think setting up intention is very useful is because it creates a focus point, and it gets people into a place of which they have some clarity about what they're doing and what they're going to do. So that prepares them. So kind of like, we're going to do a parachute jump. Let's check your parachute. Let's, know that the bay door is going to open. All of this stuff is going to happen. So you can prepare them, but you never know what it is that's going to happen. You never know what they're going to encounter. And it's absolutely true that there can be, Cindy, to your point, let's call it reactivation of experiences that you've had when you were younger, some of which you may not even know you had, some of which you may have known that you had, but have no idea it was like this until you enter into certain kind of space. And you realize, oh my God, I didn't know that this happened. And I didn't know that this was the response, and all kinds of things that can surround that. So the reactivation, very important for, the standpoint of the possibility being expressed to the person who's going to be doing the journey, but also for the facilitators or guides or whatever term you want to put in there in terms of knowing what might happen, and being prepared for that. Yeah. If I can comment, because I think this other piece is really fascinating, at least it is for me. There is a term, and I think it's called a noetic experience. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this before. There's sort of two terms that kind of go together that I've been really fascinated by and puzzling about. One is called ontological shock, and the other is called noetic knowing or noetic experience. So let me go with noetic experience first, and then I'll tell you about ontological shock. Noetic experience is that kind of an experience that you have, and you don't have to be having a psychedelic experience for this to happen, but when it happens under psychedelics, it's when it is most pronounced and most powerful. And that noetic experience is what is commonly known as aha. Aha. Now I know. Now I see. Now I understand. And sometimes what comes together is a form of knowing and understanding and clarity that helps you make sense of things and understand things in a way that you never knew before. And when you finally come out of the psychedelic experience and you are processing that space, it is remarkably valuable and remarkably important experience to have had. But sometimes, and this is where we get into these sort of memory issues, these distorted memory issues, and we get false memory syndromes and stuff like that, you can have a noetic experience that is so real and so true and so defining that that again, when you come out of that experience, you say, aha, now I know what happened. Now I know who did what to me. Now I know what I need to do. And it's, when I say false information, this is really, really tricky, because who's to decide what's real and not real, what's false and not false? But there are absolutely experiences that people can have, which after it can be seen that no, actually, maybe weeks or years later, that was wrong. That was completely wrong. But at the time, it felt like a deep truth, an earned truth that came from the psychedelic experience. That gets really tricky when sexual abuse issues come up for people on psychedelic journeys, where they now believe that something happened, maybe that they didn't know about before, and now they think it's their mother, their father, or whatever. Massive disruption in relationship afterwards when they go back home and they're intersecting with whoever the person is that they think might have been the perpetrator, or they're intersecting with people who might have known the perpetrator, who they think didn't do anything about it. If this didn't happen, it creates a massive, massive disruption. So that's really tricky space to navigate. The other space, the ontological shock, is well, maybe not you two, but most people think they know who they are. Most people think they understand, their history. They think they understand their behaviors. And then you can have an introduction to a self, yourself, in psychedelic space that is so foreign, so mind-blowing, that it creates a rupture in your ordinary sense of self. And that's why it's called a shock. And again, the notion of how to repair, how to help someone who has suffered through or been blown open by that kind of an experience. So those are kind of not necessarily the two extreme experiences on psychedelic journeys, but they kind of do mark somewhere out on the boundary issues. And then there's a whole bunch of other experiences, of course, that people can have on, on the psychedelic journeys that can take a lot of processing of what on earth was that? What does it all mean? What am I supposed to do with that? And then if they don't have help in making sense of that and figuring out how to not only make sense to themselves, which is a form of integration, but how to get it back into their life and make it work in their life so that hopefully it's a productive value that they're having. That's to me is a very important part of the whole journey. And the reason I say that's a very important part is because you don't get good integration. And the best way to get good integration is to have good preparation. And preparation starts with the first phone call or the first contact with the person that or the organization that you're going to be working with. So it's actually a continuum. It's an arc where properly done psychedelic journeys, of course, start at the beginning in a particular way with a particular, particular questions being asked, particular understandings being acquired in terms of like history, and then arc all the way through to after the psychedelic experience or experiences, because there's something to be said for having a staged series of psychedelic experiences rather than just one and done. And then integration and how to do that, and hopefully do it with the person, my opinion, do it with the person that you developed a longer term relationship with because they were involved right at the preparation side of things.
Wow, nice. Yeah. I'm just processing a bit of that. I like that, because something that Cindy and I have been talking about and noticing as we interview people is that prep work can mitigate the need for a whole bunch of integration right at the end, like right after the experience. because in some of the places I've been, I've watched people that had no experience, and afterwards they're just so going that these were in groups, so there was a lot of people to influence and help sort data.
Yeah.
But had there been a little more prepping and them being more ready, it would have been less surprise after the journey.
Yeah. It's my experience that in my clinical practice, most people I see suffer from what I call low-level anxiety, whether they know it or not. Clearly there are some people that suffer from high-level anxiety, but most people suffer from low-level anxiety. And what do I mean by that? Is that they don't appreciate that if anything suddenly changes in the world around them, sudden surprises, sudden things that they weren't predicting, it creates a disturbance. It creates a distress in our being. What we have actually done for the most part is everything in our power to try to create familiarity in a common predictive world that we can live in. The reason that that's important is because I think it's really important to establish a trust with your facilitator, the person that's going to be guiding you on that journey, because it helps calm that anxiety system down. The example I would give you is if we were walking along at midnight and we came across a cemetery, and I said, "Hey, Cindy, how about you walk through those graveyards, and I'll be here when you get back." Now, maybe you'd say, "Yahoo!" But most people wouldn't. They'd say, "I'm not going into places. I don't know what's there. I don't know what's there." But if I said to them, "Look, I'll go with you. You and I will travel together. And if you can trust me, we will walk through these unknown areas together. If you trust me," and that's where the bond, the preparation work, that's where, creating that relationship is so important. If you trust me, then people will walk through areas, will explore things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. And that's why I think people often rush the preparation work and rush into the journey, and then don't spend enough time sort of trying to make sense of the integration experience. Having said that, there's logistics behind that, because often these are costly, they're time consuming. Some people can afford to do this, some can't, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
Oh, that's a sign that we're at a good time to go to commercial break. So we'll be right back after this commercial break. You're here on the Mushie Moment live with us on paceradio.net. We'll be right back with Dr. Reid.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection. We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have two lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Reid brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Camelford Lifestyle Shop. Open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats, and look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have. As well as, for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford, Ontario. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back to the Mushie Moment, streaming live to you here at paceradio.net. We're back once again with Dr. Reid and my awesome co-host, Rev Cindy.
So you do a lot of work in the integration side. So you tend to do a lot of work with people after they've gone for a journey.
Cindy, I think it's really, I was thinking as on the break of something that I wanted to express before I answer your question, although it's partly answering your question. I would like to think I'm very well trained in this area. There's an organization called Therapsil. I don't know if you've ever heard of Therapsil. I've undergone training with them, both from the psilocybin and the MDMA. In fact, I'm a listed supervisor for them. I've worked at a retreat down in Jamaica, Michael Meditations retreat, where I had an opportunity to work with probably over 150 people. But importantly, there were staff down there. There were people who were really good at knowing how to have like group psychedelic experiences. The reason I'm putting this out there is I think it's certainly for me, and maybe it's something to do with the way I like to accumulate information. I like to have certain kinds of knowledge, like so some of it's research knowledge. Some of it is knowledge that is handed down from other people who know what they're doing. I do see psychedelics as kind of like fire, and I've tried to come up with a good analogy. But fire, like if you know what you're doing with it, you can heat your house. If you don't know what you're doing with it, you can bring your house down. Yeah. And so most of my practice is as a psychologist, and it's a clinical practice with people with depression and anxiety and relationship issues. It is not psychedelic work that I'm doing with those people for the most part. But I do have opportunities through special access programs here in Canada with Health Canada, who legalizes that opportunity for us to use MDMA and to use psilocybin. So whether from the retreats that I have been on down in Jamaica, whether through the special access programs, whether through my own journeys, asking the question of what does good integration look like? what does it look like for person A versus person B, because they may need a different type of integration process. When is integration useful? I think that, by the way, that from an integration perspective, having a community afterwards, if you can, of people who have familiarity with their own experiences, either having come from a group that you have been in which there have been shared sort of experiences, or from a community who simply, not just simply, but who have, who they work in this area or they know this area, and being able to talk to people and be able to express what is going on, because it remains the fact that the general population out there is not familiar with psychedelics. They're not familiar at all with these experiences. And we can, from this kind of bubble that we're inside of, think that it's something that a lot of people have familiarity with or they know about. And that's not true at all, which means that people need to be very thoughtful about who they're talking to, about what kind of experiences they've either been on, or even talking to about what they're thinking of doing, because if they're getting really negative feedback, that is going to have somewhat of an impact on their own journey that they're going to have. And then the integration afterwards, right? What are the conditions that are really conducive to someone being able to make sense of what they have just been through?
Cindy, can I get you to bring up the Psychology Today one? And can you just give us a little, because you did this interview with Psychology Today, correct?
I'm not sure, Steve, which interview.
Bring it up.
It's Psychology Today, and it's just your information on Psychology Today.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I actually had an interview on there attached to that, but it must have been a different.
No, that's just that's
okay. Well, that's okay, because what I want to bring up is just, we've started bringing you in and said you're this, but we haven't shown any of your accreditation or anything at all.
Yeah.
So that our viewers and that can understand that, you literally are a doctor.
Oh,
you've got.
Sorry, I didn't. I didn't give any background on myself here. I did an honors degree in psychology at Carleton University, and then I did a master's degree. Now, both of those were very sort of like behaviorally oriented. That's what Carleton University was all about. And I did a PhD at the University of Windsor, where a completely different vibe, a completely different, at least with some of the professors that I was working with, who were very, very much into consciousness, which was really exciting for me. Then I did a postdoc. I worked for 2 years at Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital up in Thunder Bay, where I had an opportunity. I was the unit psychologist for the acute treatment unit. In order to get on this unit, it was a mixed unit between people who were coming in floridly psychotic and people who were in for longer stays, because it was a forensic unit and who had done horrific things to people, and who, you can imagine that their, let's say, perception of reality was different than most people's, including mine. But so I spent a couple of years intersecting with people in that hospital. And one of the things that truly amazed me, and maybe this had something to do with my interest in inquiring into my own consciousness, was how much I could relate to the people that were talking to me. No matter, some of them were so floridly psychotic, they weren't relating to anyone or anything. But when they came out of that and were trying to describe what was going on for them, what was very unnerving for me was I knew what they were talking about. I knew it. I saw it as an aspect of my own being in some way, the types of experiences that they were having. It's just that it wasn't highly activated within me, those kinds of experiences. But I could identify with them, and I could identify with sort of not only what they were talking about, but the type of suffering that came from that, primarily because most people, I think, weren't really willing to listen to them, really willing to hear them really willing to treat them as human beings rather than patients in a psychiatric hospital. So that was fascinating experiences for me. And then I came out here to Vancouver and started up a private practice back in 1989. And I have been doing that as my primary love for many, many years. 35 years.
Okay, if we take the website up here right now as well, the Dr. Gordon Reid one?
Sure.
There you go.
And that is this.
That's it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, mindfulness. See, that's a big one. I do a lot of mindfulness work, which is obviously people have different interpretations of what mindfulness is, and I have my own particular one, but love, that's a big one. Relationships.
Yes.
Well, it seems like in my experience with all the various psychedelics I've done, love is a big thing. They seem to all speak from a language of love. Sometimes we get caught in our trauma and we look at the darkness, but when we can bring the language back to a language of love and healing, what is that?
Somebody's fire alarm?
No, not me. Sorry.
Not me.
There you go, Steve.
I haven't had that happen. That's my battery unit telling me my batteries are getting low in my.
Well, I don't want to derail too far from psychedelics but I do want to talk about love because it does have a connection. Love is a big word. It can mean an awful lot of things to a lot of people. I see love as a creative act. I see love as one of the highest creative acts that we humans can engage in if we know how to do it and what we're doing with that. And when I say to create, what I mean is the ability to both, from a loving perspective with regards to yourself, to learn how to pay attention, how to relate to yourself, how to form a curious, compassionate, interested inquiry into the nature of one's own being, rather than that critical, shaming, disappointed attitude that we can have. Because when you begin to approach yourself from that perspective, you begin to open up. And when you begin to open up, of course, this is what the whole experience of growing and development comes from. It's a state of experience. It's not a cognitive state. It's a state of feeling oneself to become different and growing. But a creative act with regards to others, I use the example of even a 5-year-old can destroy a sandcastle that a 10-year-old has built on the beach. It doesn't take any high level of intelligence whatsoever to destroy. To create is the much higher later developmental capacity. And so when you begin to appreciate that when you're relating to another human being, you can come at it from a standpoint of that is effectively destructive in various ways, or at least it's non-helpful. The way we can shut people down, or we can, we can criticize them or judge them. But when you learn how to create by being a co-creator with another human being, meaning you learn how to speak to people, how to be with people, how to nurture people, and help them begin to open up and begin to experience themselves more widely, then I think what you're learning as an act of love. Like Scott Peck was a psychiatrist. He wrote a book called The Road Less Traveled. Maybe you read it. And he talked about love as an act of will, to basically find out about the nature of who you are, to extend that over to another human being. Hopefully they will receive that and encourage you to open up more. And then hopefully they will be willing to open back up again. And through this mutual co-creation, we begin to discover more and more of the nature of who we are, the deeper and deeper nature of who we are. And we grow and we develop. And that's why I also think psychedelics can be so amazing if done the right way and with the right kind of support, is because we're going to have those kinds of experiences which are as everything is, by the way, in life, as far as I'm concerned, we're surrounded by teachers of many, many sorts that you just, if you know how to listen, you know how to pay attention, there is knowledge available that you can acquire in day-to-day living, let alone psychedelic space, which has its own presentation of a very particular state of consciousness that you encounter. And again, the point I'm trying to get at is you can learn how to inquire with that state of consciousness, how to develop a relationship of openness and trusting and not be, fighting with it, which if it has been in your nature to fight and struggle with your own experiences, you may well have a difficult time in psychedelic space. But so that's the intrinsic value ultimately of useful integration experiences, as you come out bigger and wiser and more caring and loving, because that's what love does. It moves you in that direction, and that's just the way it is. And so I'm very
up room for compassion to flow, for you to harmonize, because we've all had rough experiences, and if we can allow how we felt in our rough experience to harmonize with if we're giving them the space to let that they feel safe to tell their experience to us. That allows us to kind of relate and harmonize and know what that vibration is and have understanding for it.
Yes. Because every experience is, well, arguably infinitely complex, infinitely deep. And your ability to not only say this is what happened, but begin to look at the nature of what that experience was. What did it mean? What's the significance? What else is there? What is it telling me? It's a possibility that, again, if you know how to explore, then it's there for you. And if you don't, it's kind of like having a set of Encyclopedia Britannicas or whatever the best example is, but you don't know how to open the book and you don't know how to read. It's there, but it's just not available to you. So yeah.
Wow. So you experienced psychedelics, 17, 18. What steered you to the letters after your name?
I was a little younger than 17 when I experienced psychedelics. But the same thing that I was describing when I said I had that awakening. Something turned on in my consciousness, and I just knew that this was what I wanted to explore. Now, I thought that psychology, and I think I was correct, that it was probably the best avenue that I could use to help me understand more about the nature of humans and social processes and psychological processes, and it's very good at that. But for the most part, psychology, to call it mainstream, it's beginning to explore these other wilder areas of human consciousness. But so for me, there's the avenue that's going to get me most closely aligned with what it is that my mind seems to be wanting to know about. And so I did. And, I was blessed to do all of those years, 13 years it took me to get from start to finish till I could legitimately practice. I was blessed to be fascinated by what I was doing and studying, and I'm fascinated to this day. Every time, I work with people in my practice, and then I listen to their experiences, and I use my experiences of my consciousness when I'm with another person's consciousness to help locate in some way their consciousness, to become in some way a translator for them at the start, so they begin to put into their own frame of reference experiences which they couldn't make sense of. And then if I'm good at what I'm doing, they go, oh yeah, that's right. And then they begin to learn how to do the navigation themselves. And then once they start to do that, well, then we're on a journey of exploration where it's kind of like everything is worthwhile taking a look at. And isn't it all fascinating? Yeah.
So how hard was it for you to work out the communicable language in a language that's as limited as English for those type of experiences. Because
Well, you know
generally,
what?
if you try to explain an experience, you sound crazy.
I to this day, I mean, I do a lot of reading, a lot, I access a lot of different sites, a lot of different sources of information, all trying to get to exactly what you're talking about, Steve. So how can I articulate experiences in a certain way? What are the examples I can use? What are the stories I can tell? What are the things that other people have discovered that I can say, aha, that's it. That puts a frame on that experience that I'm having, and that I can then hopefully frame for someone else in such a way that when it's given to them, they say, yeah, that's it. Because otherwise it's like, I don't know what's going on. Something doesn't feel right, or something feels different. I don't know what it is. And then they have that anxious experience I was talking about before. They go, oh, I just want to back up from this. And then they don't learn anything from that teacher that happens to come in that form.
Yes. Because if you can't articulate it in your own mind, and you don't have somebody that can help you articulate it in a sense of understanding, it can be something you just want to bury.
Absolutely. And I would want to add, though, that articulating experiences, making sense of experiences is really important, but it's just a step along the way, because then the next step is learning how to have experiences, learning how to be in a place where you can be receptive to experiences rather than trying to figure them out. That's really tricky business. To allow consciousness to unfold and to be an observer. I often use the examples like listening to music. If you want to really know what music is, you have to be in a place where you are the music, and the music is you. And if you can be in that place, that experience is radically different than being in a place where you're listening to the music, or you're trying to figure out who's that band, or what's that instrument, or why did they put those words in there. That's not the music. It's listening to it, but it's not being in the music. And so learning how to be open and in the moment, in the flow, whatever you want to call it, and learning how to stay there over extended periods of time is a step further than the articulation of experiences, which is important to say, okay, I think the experience, the territory feels familiar enough to me that I can name it. Now I feel comfortable in how to navigate it, because I know a bit more about where I can go and where maybe I better not go, or at least not go yet. Yeah.
Yeah, that we call that point that you're talking about letting go, where you can just be a part of the experience rather than have the brain analyzing every second of the experience.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I heard Dr. Reid use a very important word that we have been told before on many occasions by another friend of ours who is a psychologist as well, and she works in facilitation, but as well as integration. Observe is a big word. Observe, like when you're in ceremony, observe what the medicine is showing you. Observe how you're reacting to it. Observe what it is bringing up. You don't necessarily have to figure it all out right in that second. Like integration can take a year, it can take 2 years, and you need to observe and soak it in and understand. And something else I do want to take a moment to comment on. You were talking earlier about how you went into the hospital and you sat with people and you listened to understand. And I have a different word for that. Empathy. It was very easy to see, especially in that moment when you were talking, you are somebody who has a lot of empathy. You can very easily set yourself down and listen to somebody and put yourself in their shoes and work really hard to understand and empathize with what they're going through and what they're thinking. And that is beautiful. Coming from somebody who has very serious CPTSD, that is a beautiful trait in somebody who works in talk therapy as yourself.
Yeah. The way I see it is that your nervous system intersects with my nervous system. Your consciousness intersects with my consciousness. What I become when I'm with, whether you, Cindy, or you, Steve, or anyone that I'm working with, what I become is an amalgamation of my being with their being. In other words, I witness their manifestation of who they are to me in my consciousness when I'm with them and they're sort of sitting over there. So I come to know them through my experiences that I'm having, which I've learned how to pay attention to watch what's forming. And then my task is to say, how much of this is mine and how much of this is about them, and learning how to navigate that space by asking questions of the other, like, for example, so when you say this, it feels like this is happening. Does that work for you? Does that fit for you? And if I've got them properly located in my being, they'll go, yeah, that's what's happening. And that's where the analogy of walking through a cemetery with someone, if they trust that you're going to be there and that you know what's going on with them, they'll go a long, long, long way. And unfortunately, in our social system, we've been grossly inhibited from exploring and expressing and letting other people know what's going on with us. In fact, exactly the opposite has happened, where I sadly believe we're in a massive retreat away from each other because, well, for lots of reasons that I don't want to go into right now, but I think it's very unfortunate. So I think community is crucial, finding friends, people you love, people that you trust. That's what really matters most.
Yeah. We're down to the last couple of minutes, Dr. Reid. Is there anything else that we haven't asked or you haven't brought up that you would like to share with everybody?
I think the only thing that comes up for me immediately is the wonder of being, the magnificence of experiencing. And the Plato's cave allegory, where people are seeing shadows on the wall and they don't realize that there's a whole other world out there, and they don't know how to get to that other world anyhow because no one's going to show them how to do that. But there is being alive is a miracle. It is one of the most profound miracles, and we, for the most part, don't know it, even though it's with us every day. So consciousness, awareness, experience, whatever you want to call it, if you can begin to tune yourself so that you're having that, no matter where you are, no matter who you're with, then you've got it going on, and you know what it is that you've hit the pinnacle of learning and understanding, and that. So there, I put that in there.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
That was awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a very interesting conversation. I very much enjoyed it. We've learned a lot about you, and we went right back to pre-17 when you had your experiences and caught your interest. I am very thankful that you are somebody that is in this space. You sound like a very compassionate person, and I'm sure that your clients and patients feel the same way. Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time today.
You are more than welcome. Thank you. It's nice to have met both of you.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we can have you back on at a future date, and we can do some more discussing. I know you're in my neighborhood, so I'll probably bug you, just so you know.
Well, I have many things I could talk about.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Much appreciated. Bye.
Okay, it's that time again, so thank you for joining us here on the Mushie Moment with my co-host, Rev Cindy, myself, and our awesome guest, Dr. Reid. We're proud to be coming to you live from paceradio.net, and we'll see you next week with more exciting guests and healing information. Much love.
Much love.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20 is so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.